everybody. We can go ahead and get started with Coach. I'll go to Jen and then Graf.
Morning, Coach. When you see a team like this at the same time, twice in 1 week, how much does that change the approach and the strategy, given that there's some familiarity there now?
It doesn't really change the approach. It's just that your guys do go in with a little bit more familiarity, and it's more about adjustments from the other night. So it's a little bit different in terms of the preparation, but not 180 degrees different.
And when it comes to making adjustments, how can you make Julius Randle a little more uncomfortable today?
I don't know. He was more uncomfortable against us than he was against Dallas the other night. So I'm not sure people have really made him uncomfortable. We'll try to play him a little better, a little harder, but he's a really, really good player.
This is a very good Knicks defensive team, Coach, as we know. What were you able to do effectively against them back on Wednesday night?
Well, we struggled. I mean, there's no question, and they're going to be loaded up against Zion and Brandon. They clearly don't have a lot of respect for our other guys, and so I think number one, we've got to play with a little bit better pace. You're not going to get a lot of fast break layups against them, but we've got to be on the attack and keep moving and not let them lock in. Our player movement and ball movement has got to be better, getting the ball from side to side and keeping them moving. And then look, I mean, when they pack it in and we kick it out and get shots, I mean, we're going to have to make shots. Like, over the last 6 games, we've only made 36 threes. 7's the most we've made in a game, and we're shooting 24% from 3. I mean, that's not going to make anybody get out of the paint. I mean, there's just not a lot of answers around that. I mean, you can move guys around and do all of that. I mean, spacing is shooting. That's the bottom line. I mean, I remember years ago, it was probably 1984 or 85, going to a clinic that Bobby Knight did in Connecticut, and one of the first rules he gave us defensively is, don't guard anybody outside of their shooting range. So, you can move guys wherever you want, but if you're not making shots, they're going to stay in the paint. So hopefully today will be the day we break out and knock down some shots and spread the defense a little bit and get our guys a little bit of room.
I know you've missed Josh the last couple of weeks with his energy off the bench. Are you starting to see Najee fill that role a little bit?
Najee's played really, really well. I mean, he's rebounded the ball pretty well. I think the difference is, what Josh could do pace-wise is rebound the ball, take it off the board, and take it coast to coast. And so he initiated a lot of our fast break opportunities. We're not getting those right now. That on top of probably some fatigue, our pace has really slowed. And not just in terms of fast breaks. We're just not moving with the pace that we were. And that's really hurt us offensively too. And he's a guy who could get our pace going a little bit.
Stan, Christian Clark here. These last couple games, seems like you can count on Najee for 4, 5, 6 assists. What has stood out to you about his ability to put the ball on the floor and find teammates?
Yeah, listen, I mean, his skill level offensively is good. I mean, he can attack. He can make plays. He's made some threes these last couple of games. He defends. He rebounds. I mean, he's played really, really well. I think the challenge going forward for him, and it'll be interesting to watch, is, the longer you play, the longer you're in that rotation, number one, the more teams prepare for you. And these guys who have broken in lately have a little bit of an advantage in a season like this because they're not as worn down as some other guys. And so if he plays for a long period of time and is subjected to having to play big minutes every other day, how he holds up relative to everybody else will be interesting. But it's one I think all of us in the organization are interested to see here over this last 4 weeks is, how well he can sustain his level of play. I think we've all seen enough to see the promise in Najee and be excited about his future, but it'll be interesting to see what happens over the next 4 weeks. Because, look, we see great promise in Kyra, too, and he's started to hit the wall a little bit and struggle. And so it'll be interesting to see if Kyra can break out of that and if Najee can sort of push through that. Those are interesting questions for young players going forward.
Hey Stan, just how does an early tip like this on the road after a Friday night game kind of change? Does it change anything you do, or is it put guys out of their routine, put coaches out of their routine? What's different about a tip like this?
Well, it definitely takes you out of your routine, and so especially with COVID, right? So normally in a normal season, we would have walked through in the hotel this morning, had breakfast, met, gone through stuff. But when you have to test before you can get together and wait for the results, we would have had guys up way too early. So we actually did the film on New York and the walkthrough yesterday, which is what we've been doing for afternoon games. So, that's very different in terms of the routine, but it's just a necessity. But it's totally different, at least in the way we used to do things. But we've done the same thing at home. We had that afternoon game with Boston. There's been a couple of them, and this is the way we've had to do it, do the walkthroughs the day before the game. I mean, everybody's in, again, like, you may not like a lot about this season. I think all of us would have things we don't like as coaches, but we're all going through the same challenges. It's not like it's an unfair playing field. I mean, we're all doing the same things, and you just have to adapt.
Stan, along those lines of this whole season, I remember Tom at the beginning of the year kind of talking about wanting to be a good practice team first, and then you build your habits, take to the games, that kind of thing. I've heard probably a number of coaches say they barely even practice this season. Are you finding there's actually time to really get valuable practices, or is it just you got to be a guy like Thibodeau maybe who maybe is a little more interested in working than maybe some teams can actually handle this year?
Well, I've said to people, I mean, I know enough about Tom to know I'm sure he's not doing as much as he's done in the past, but whatever he's doing is more than everybody else. So, and he's playing guys big minutes, and they're playing well. So, I think most people have just, adapted to doing less and getting more rest and, trying to keep guys as fresh as they can. But, I admire what they've done in New York. I admire what they put on the floor in terms of intensity. Those guys, I mean, Randall has played 300 more minutes than anybody on our team has played, and I know that they're doing some work and stuff. So, for us, it's just adjust, find the time when you can. But, our medical people are really into keeping people fresh, and so a lot of guys would be held out if we tried to do anything. So we take advantage whenever we can get an opportunity, but there aren't many of them.
Yeah, hey Stan. You said after the last game that Zion obviously dominates people physically, but he's smart enough to beat you mentally as well. And as a young guy, obviously time on task kind of helps with that process. But as a coach, how do you help a young guy improve to the point where they can start thinking the game the way we see most of these elite guys do in the NBA?
Yeah, listen, I mean, he does think the game to a degree, but it's not going to be. I think what people expect especially for a guy as talented as he does, and he's done some things at his age that nobody's ever done. Nobody. Okay? And so people think it's just going to be like this, a linear progression, and every game's going to be great, even though you're playing him handling the ball and the whole thing. I mean, the expectations in my mind are I understand that he's been great and he's earned those expectations to a degree. But they're unrealistic in terms of thinking that every game's going to be better than the last one. Every game's going to be great. He's not going to make mistakes in making decisions and things like that. I mean, we haven't ever had a 20-year-old in the league who hasn't made mistakes. I think what he's done at his age and his level of experience, he still hasn't played 82 games in this league. Still hasn't played the equivalent of the season. What he's done has been phenomenal, but there's going to be ups and downs. And the other night, he was really, really down after the game, in the way he played, and particularly the last offensive and defensive possession. But what I said to him is, you're going to have a long career in this league, and there's going to be more nights like this. There are. I mean, that's just the way it goes. The NBA is hard. Nobody has it easy in this league. And everybody has tough nights and tough finishes, and you have to try to learn and move on. And he's an extremely smart guy, and he will learn, and he will improve, and he'll do things differently. And he's great already, but because he's so great at 20, people's expectations, I think, have run a little bit crazy. And as a result, probably the criticism of some of his decisions and stuff's a little bit over the top.
Hey Stan. When you said the Knicks are going to load up on Zion and Brandon, looking back at the film from the other day, is that about those two guys making better decisions when they do load up on them, or is it about the supporting cast knocking down the shots when they're open or making better movement off the ball? I mean, what did you see in terms of that, and what you guys need to do better?
I mean, it's all of that, right? I think, first of all, it's better movement on our part. Not being as stagnant where it's easy to load up. I think that's important. I think better player and ball movement, that's really, really important. And then, Zion and Brandon have to make the right play. Listen, in a game where we didn't shoot well, they both had 7 assists. So it's not like these guys weren't making plays. To have 7 assists each when you were shooting like that, I mean, they could have each had double-figure assists in that game easily. So, but they need to continue to make the right decision, and other guys are going to have to make shots and make plays that they have available to them. So, it's a little bit of all of that.
All right, thank you, Coach. Appreciate your time.
Yeah. Oh, that's right.